Hi, and welcome to Tunheim's virtual panel about navigating newsrooms. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ann Olson, and I lead the media practice at Tunheim. We're an agency that works with clients to help them be better understood by their stakeholders, whether that's customers, employees, suppliers, whoever that may be. We help them tell their stories in a way that helps media understand who they are and also helps them meet their business goals. Today, we're here because we're honored to welcome two women who are among the best in the media business. They're going to share their insights about how they've changed the way they're working in the last year. And they'll also tell us how they're choosing stories of the day, how they're planning for the future, and share their advice for organizations that are looking to tell their stories to media. This is a live virtual conversation, and our panel participants and me are at the mercy of our Wi Fi connections. So we'll be very patient with everyone. On the right side of your screen, my colleague Nick will be making comments in the chat bar throughout. So if you want to make sure you can see this chat bar right now, he'll be adding additional context to the conversation. If you would like to submit questions for our panelists, you can do that by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll get to as many of those questions as we can throughout our time together. We are recording this conversation, so if you know of someone who wasn't able to join us today, you'll be able to share this with them later. So watch Tunheim's social channels later today, where we'll be posting that link. So let's get right to it and meet our panelists. I want to welcome, first of all, Maria Reeve, Managing Editor of Content for the Houston Chronicle, one of the top daily papers in the United States. And also Lexie Sachs, Textiles Director for Good Housekeeping magazine, the largest title under the Hearst umbrella of brands. So welcome both of you today. I want to start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves to the group. And I'm going to ask you to start with telling us where you're working from today, what your role is at the organization and what that really means to those of us who are communicators on the line today, and also how you've changed the way you're working in the last year. So Lexi, let's start with you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here. My name's Lexie Sachs. I'm the textiles director at Good Housekeeping. So I wear a lot of different hats in my role, the main being overseeing all of the content around textile products, so clothing and home furnishings, anything paper related, all the accessories, everything like that. I also have a digital strategy role where I work closely with our digital team to make sure that all of the products that our scientists and experts are testing is really going to have the most impactful possible content through Good Housekeeping. I also work on the Good Housekeeping Seal, which is a licensing program, and I work on all of our Good Housekeeping summits and whatnot. So wear a lot of different hats and have done a lot of different roles over the past year. Today, I am in my home in the New York City suburbs. I'm in Long Island. I'm currently from my bedroom because my kindergartner is doing virtual school in the room next to my makeshift office right now, and the walls are very thin. And I have a 2-year-old who is in the basement with her dad. So we are, a little bit crazy right now. I guess that leads into the next point with how things have changed over the past year. So I have been working from home since March. I've gone into the office one time just to pick up supplies because I do a lot of product testing. So certain things I need. I think majority of my colleagues in New York City who have long commutes or just don't want to be in that crowded office space, we've all been working from home. So that's pretty standard across the board. I think this is probably the busiest year we've ever had, which is great, but it's been really tough in the setting to get through. I think one of the reasons we're here is just pitches, and we get more pitches than we ever have before. It's pretty much nonstop, but you could spend all day just reading emails. So there's a lot coming in our way. We have a lot of content. The website's doing really well with people turning to the internet to shop or to look for tips or whatever it may be. So it's been really great, but it's been really busy. And it's been a lot of dealing with change and just trying to get into our groove, which I think we're finally at now. I think it answers all of the questions. So I'm going to pass it over to Maria now.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I am also excited to be here, especially joining my old friends at Tunheim. My name is Maria Reeve. I'm the managing editor for content at the Houston Chronicle, which means I am in charge of the newsroom, and it's sports, business, features, metro. and also I deal some with our digital staff as well. So it's a big job. I do want to mention that I spent 25 plus years in the Twin Cities at both the Pioneer Press and the Star Tribune. And I've been here in Houston it'll be a year, and in about 2 weeks, it'll be a year that I've been here. Except I think I've spent more time out of the office than actually in the office with my new colleagues. So it's been a true year of transition. I happen to be in my office today because we are getting ready for election night. We typically, everybody, like in other offices, we sent everyone home in March. So I spent most of March, April, May in my apartment in Houston, but spent the summer, because you can work from anywhere. I spent the summer in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, and that was you're trading 100 plus degrees in Houston for a nice, pleasant Minnesota summer. So I thought I would do that. And I also have, my kids are still in Minnesota. I have two 20 somethings and an eighth grader. So it was really nice to be there during the summer with them. So we've totally changed. I am working out of the office, and what is amazing and makes me really proud of the work that this group and other newspapers are doing is that we haven't missed a day. We've figured out how to do our work and how to report on all of these unprecedented things happening in our communities and the world from home. And so it's a tribute to technology and to people's resilience and their ability to change with the times.
Oh, thank you. And it's good to see you again as well. Um,
Thanks.
we'll jump right into the questions. And Lexi, I think, well, you sort of started to go down this path, so I'm going to follow up. You mentioned your email box is overflowing now more than ever. Can you talk a little bit about what role relationships play in getting your story told right now? Because if you're getting so many emails, I've got to believe that you're really looking for those names, you know.
Yeah, I do think it's a combination of knowing the names, and also just the right messaging in the well, really quickly, I'll start with what the content of the email, because I think that's the main thing for me. I think of us going to our reader. We only have a short snippet and an image to convince them to read the entire article. So I think the same goes for pitches. If there's if it's very vague or it's not really doesn't catch my attention, it's more likely to get glazed over. But if it's something that I feel like is relevant for me, and that I can tell in an instant that I need to read more, I think that's the biggest thing when it goes through the emails. But the relationships definitely do help. I know it's much, much harder now without in person events, and all of the meet and greets to form those relationships. But there are certain contacts I've been in touch with for years, that I know personally at this point, and they've become almost like friends. And it's those are the types of emails that name stands out to me, so it's easier to read. The same thing goes if I have coverage coming up where I need a product. Am I going to reach out to someone that I know for help? Very likely, because I know that they're the type of person that will follow up quickly and get me what I need, whether it's an image or a quote or whatnot. So I do think that relationships are huge in this industry. There are a lot of people that I get email from multiple times a day, but I don't really know them as well. So there's a difference between emailing and really getting to know someone for sure.
Good. Maria, I'm going to follow up on something you mentioned also in your introduction, where you were talking about how your newsroom, well, it's been a year of change for you personally, constantly, but your newsroom has really changed the way it's working. So, how many people are in the office, and how are you getting daily things like a news meeting done?
Zoom is our friend now. We do lots of meetings on either Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So the communication, what we've discovered is, where we might have met previously in a conference room, those meetings now happen online and over one of these platforms. So what we figured out is that the key is we just have to keep talking. Oh, and also Slack. Slack is we have to have Slack, because this is how lots of people can all share an idea where you might have stood around someone's desk before to kind of hash out, hey, what are we going to do with this? Those conversations happen in Slack or over Zoom if we need to call a meeting. So, communication again is key. Talking about, what are we doing with this? Making sure that everyone gets the same information, is on the same page. We have our budget meetings again. They used to be in a conference room. Now they happen over Zoom. So that's how we've been communicating in our office right now. Typically, if we weren't getting ready for election night, there would be maybe three or four. One constant is our executive administrative assistant. Like she, they run the place anyway. So she is here usually if reporters need supplies, notebooks, or if they've gotten mail, an important piece of mail from somewhere. She's who we coordinate that through so that they can come into the building and do what they need to do. But we are on absolutely a skeleton crew right now. Even our editor, our executive editor, he's out of the office. Everyone is working from their homes. We've had reporters do what I did too, which is if you can work anywhere, where would you work? And so some of them went home to their parents. Some of them, just went somewhere else to have a change of scenery for a little bit. But again, mainly for us, it's we make sure that we are in communication through email, Zoom, Slack, whatever method we have to do that.
Hmm.
And I wanted to piggyback on what Lexie said about relationships. They are key, absolutely key. And especially in our business too, where it's not a monthly, it's a daily publication. And so just knowing who the person is who's asked you to look at something or they're pitching an idea is just critical.
Good to know. And you're talking about all the emails you're getting. Before COVID, we
Mhm.
would have you would have spent a lot of your time between Lexi and Maria. You would have spent a lot of your time at editor previews, press conferences, lots of in-person events like that. How have you seen organizations change the way they're getting that news to you in the last year or so? And what are you seeing that's really working well, and what would you not recommend? Maria, why don't you start?
Sure. We still get the emails. The emails are still flowing in fast and furiously. We don't go to events as much anymore, though. That's loosening up just a tiny bit. For example, if we have the mayor or hear their county judges, if they have a news conference and we feel like we need to go, like everyone is masked up and distance, like we're not there in a clump. So if there are things that we absolutely have to go to, we do go, but we make sure that our journalists are as safe as they possibly can be, that we provided equipment for them to do their work without the danger of maybe contracting a disease. So we're doing that. The pitches are still, like I said, coming in over email. And I think some products are still showing up here, though I don't know where where they're going because no one's here to actually come and get them and do anything with them. So we're just making sure that people are safe if they have to go out, and honestly evaluating the emails the same way that we used to, which is for us it has to be local. It has to be, tell me how this is important to a reader or a community in Houston.
Mhm. Lexi?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, I was going to events multiple times a week, whether it was out of the office. Sometimes we would have desk sides like on a regular basis. There were people coming in to meet and show products. So that's really where a lot of these relationships form. And I do see there are some questions popping up from attendees about relationships. So it sounds like something very important. People are asking about how to, like, if without these, how do you build these types of relationships? There have been, there have been a really good shift towards the virtual meetings and relationship building opportunities. So in the beginning, things were just so crazy, especially when everyone was locked down. Like I really didn't have any help with my kids. I just didn't have the capacity to do these one-on-one phone calls and meetings and events. That has since gotten a lot more flexible. And I will say, a lot of my colleagues who maybe don't have children and are bored out of their minds are more willing to do every possible event they can go to. I think it really does vary between the different editors. For me, I'm very picky and choosy about which ones I can go to. I do cover a lot of kids products, so I do get invited to events where my kids are invited to it, and it's more interactive for them. So I think like one is just having a fun factor if you're going to do an editor event. There are a lot of people who are doing cooking classes or really things that are interactive, and it feels like fun, and you get to know each other. It's not just sitting there presenting product, and I think that's a really good icebreaker. Something that feels like it's fun, but it's still work. I've been doing press previews where agencies have had actually been there in person, and they have one person who has an iPad that walks around, and you just do kind of FaceTime appointments with the different brands that are there, almost like you would in person. And it's much quicker than in person, but that way you get to have that same feel like you're in a showroom, meeting with brands, seeing product, talking to people.
Yeah.
I do have one-on-one phone calls and Zooms and Skypes and whatnot, just to have those quick 15 to 20-minute conversations. So I think that we're at the point, like maybe not 4 or 5 months ago this would have been happening, but we're at the point where people really are making time to sort of get back into the flow of we did, just in a new reality.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And Lexi, when we talked last week, you showed me your wall of samples that had been
Hmm.
sent to your house.
Yep.
What are you telling people about when they say, "Can I send you something?"
So I think it really depends. I mean, to be completely transparent, I don't even answer every single email. Sometimes it's not relevant. Sometimes I'll see it and I'll pass it along to another editor. I've just started getting the request for holiday mailers, and in the spirit of not turning people down, I am accepting those. But I would say earlier on, I was very picky and choosy, and if people would offer to send a product for review, I would keep it in mind and call it in if necessary. But we do have a lot of product being sent to our homes, especially in my world where we do nothing but write about products. So we really had to be selective with what was showing up, especially because it's harder to give away products or donate at the end, and we just don't have all the storage. So there are times I get pitched a product like, "Can we mail it to you?" And I say, "Not right now," but then in 4 weeks I can follow up and say, "Okay, I'm ready to accept it now." There are often times it's like a new exciting product, and I'll be like, "Yes, send it right away. We need to cover this." So I would say it varies. There isn't one clear answer, but we do our best to see as many products as we can. And perhaps if it's not me, it might be one of my colleagues who's able to see it. Like we're really helping each other out just by getting our hands on as much as possible.
Yeah, good. So we hear about data and analytics and how that they've become integral to how you're choosing stories of the day. How does data and analytics factor into your choices? And Maria, we'll start with you.
Okay. So in the mornings, we have our morning news huddle, which used to be what's coming for the paper for the next day. Now that meeting is what are we posting at 9, 10, noon, 1, 3. So for us, it's what is coming during the day. How are we going to drive traffic to our website? What are readers saying they want to see? And so we also use uh, chart beat. And so that tells us which stories are trending, which ones have high engagement, whether that's, 30 seconds spent with it, whether readers are spending a minute or two. For the record, 2 minutes is a really long time to spend with a story online. So if we see a story with 2 minutes, we know that that is touching something for our readers. So we're using analytics to tell us what our communities are interested in. What are they interested in reading? So we balance that with, sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm only interested in politics or serious investigative." When we know that car wreck is going to like shoot way up there. So we're balancing when we get to making decisions about print. Both those things that people said they want to read and things we think people need to read. So data is super important for our work now. And each of our reporters has a dashboard, so they can tell how their stories are doing, how much engagement they're getting, and whether something they've written has tripped a reader to subscribe. So we have a whole raft of data that helps us understand who our readers are and what they're interested in.
Wow. Great. Lexi, can you answer the data question? Because I know you use it a lot too.
Yeah, so our coverage is very, very analytical, very strategic. We want to make sure that if we're writing something, it's going to be read. Most of the people that come to our site are through Google and just through search in general. So we do have social media, we do have a newsletter. People can come directly to our site, but the vast majority of our readers are finding us through search. So one, we want to make sure that people are going to be searching for it. Most of our coverage are product roundups because people are looking for the best refrigerator, the best vacuum, the best mattress, whatever it is. That's really a lot of our content. Same goes. I don't cover entertainment and news, but my colleagues who do, if there are certain TV shows that are really hot right now, if people are doing that, that's the type of stuff that we're going to make sure we're doing it the right way based on analytics. A lot of people come to us pitching a product, wanting a one-off review, and I tell all the PR reps that I know it might sound great on your part to have this whole article written about your one product, but how are people going to find it? If your product does not have its own search volume, then no one's going to come across this article. Even with social media, it's very strategic about what is getting promoted. So having this one-off product review doesn't really suit the brand unless it's a high search product. But if you are, I don't know, I cover leggings. So if a pair of workout leggings is in our best workout legging roundup, you're going to get a lot of people reading that. You're going to get people who are specifically looking to buy workout leggings, and you're going to get people who follow through with that purchase. So being part of this big roundup is actually better for people than having this one-off article. So it's, really just looking at the numbers about who's searching for what is their intent with searching. And we look very far out. So people think that digital can really be written at any time. I'm getting pitches in October being like, I know it's really early, but are you starting to work on gift guides yet? And we were working on gift guides over the summer. People start searching for it in the fall, and we want to be at the top of the Google searches before it hits that peak. So we will be working on it early just to make sure that we're at the right ranking at the right time. We have a whole team of SEO managers, and their whole job is just to make sure that we're optimizing whatever we can do for search. Another thing, and I know we spoke about this before the call, is the fact that we are actually a digital first mentality. So we are a print magazine and we do have a website, two very different audiences and approaches for coverage. But we do look to our website to see what's working there. What are people engaging with? What are they looking to buy? What advice are they looking for? And we'll adapt that into the magazine to make sure that we're not just throwing random content into a magazine. It's really well thought out and looking at numbers for sure.
So just as communicators do their homework before they send a pitch about, what beat does Lexie Sachs cover and what types of products does she review, they should also be doing their homework on what other types of similar stories have gotten a lot of engagement and what has made them that way.
Yeah, I would say, things like SEM Rush, Google Analytics, keyword analytics through Google. There are different ways that you can see what's being searched for. And I think knowing that before you end up pitching it is very helpful. Another thing is not just looking at the numbers, but who's ranking. So we have to be very true to our brand, and Google is very smart and it knows how to rank. So anything bedding will be top ranking, anything gift guide will be top ranking. If someone's looking at like medical condition or devices to help with medical stuff, they're going to put something like a WebMD there. So I get a lot of medical pitches, but it's just not on brand. So we just have to make sure that we're staying true to our type of coverage, even things that are more local. I've gotten pitched for like something in a specific state, and it's like, well, this could come up on a search for best things to do in this state, but that's more regional websites that are showing up. It wouldn't be something national like Good Housekeeping.
Good. Good. So social justice issues are front and center right now. How are your outlets prioritizing this, and how is that reflected in the stories you're telling? And Maria, if you wouldn't mind taking this one first.
Sure. I think that when the pandemic started, we had some stories, many stories actually, about what this meant in different communities. And we've done quite a few pieces on how the pandemic was disproportionately affecting Black and Latino communities. And especially if you know anything about Houston, you know that this is a majority minority city. It's the fourth largest city in the country, and we have 6 million people in this metro area alone. So we knew that there would be great interest in those kinds of stories for that audience. And then, in May, the tragedy happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd, who actually spent a good part of his childhood and young adult life in Houston. So, like, there was this connection. So, we were doing stories about his life here, and we did a kind of a profile of him that searched back to his arrival here, what his experience was like in the schools, um, and just when he left here and moved to Minneapolis, what that meant for him. So we've been on top of all of those things, and getting great, kind of response and engagement with readers on those topics. But when you swirl together uh, a worldwide pandemic and social and racial unrest, it's been a phenomenal year for our news business. And staying on top of it all has been a challenge, but one that I think the reporters here and in those cities where those things have happened have met. Keeping people informed and also allowing people a way to figure out what can you do, if because we get that question a lot, like, I feel so helpless, what can I do? And so providing kind of you know resources for people to figure out how do you engage with this, what's your part here. So it's and it continues. Like, we know that this pandemic um, won't be over anytime soon. We know even that coming back to our offices is not a thing that will happen this year or even in first quarter next year. I mean, we're looking, like many other businesses, at mid-year next year to come back. And so helping people kind of navigate this time, we think, is part of our mission.
Hmm. Thank you. And Lexi, I know you're keeping an eye on social justice issues at Good Housekeeping as well and have set some goals for that.
Yeah, so I think before 2020, anytime there was an issue that was controversial, it would be covered in a way that was more of an opinion piece, maybe written by someone writing an essay. Here, it's become really forefront of what we do. If you go to the Good Housekeeping website, you will see a whole time for change component with lots of different articles. Our content is a lot around people saying, like, explaining why saying all lives matter is problematic, or here's how you can have these difficult conversations with your family, what to do if one of your friends or family members says something that you feel is racist or inappropriate, explaining the difference between what not being racist and what anti-racist really means. So we are bringing in experts for that, and just kind of creating this content that is not necessarily from a news perspective, but is born out of all the news and able to really address these hard-hitting issues. At Hearst, there has been a lot of more tangible goals as far as talent and products that are being covered. So we are aiming for at least 15% of our product roundups to be by Black-owned businesses, just to make it more inclusive and to make sure the readers are finding products that they're going to be wanting to purchase themselves. And so that has been one of the tangible goals we've been looking at. Just this is a little bit off topic, but we have been doing some summits within product industries. So I oversaw one of our parenting summits, and we had this whole panel discussion on talking to children about racism. And the Today Show third hour anchors were our panelists for that. And they were saying something along the lines of how the fact that we are in this pandemic, we're home, we're with our families all the time. And then you have the George Floyd death happen. We are just in the perfect position to be receiving this type of news and really making the change. Like, it's almost like the fact that we were at home watching the news and paying attention to what was happening. It was just like the catalyst for this movement. So I think a lot of it, really goes hand in hand. And it's just been such a transformative year in so many ways. And I think that's just going to continue.
Yeah, thank you. So, in other news that's happening right now, we're getting a lot of questions from our clients at Tunheim about they have stories to tell and they want to tell it right away. And we've got the election right around the corner. So, Maria, why don't you start with this one? If we have, how should communications people be preparing around the election news that's coming?
Okay. The election is kind of sucking the air out of everything right now. I'm looking at my front page from this morning, and it is all election or COVID related. That's kind of where we are. So I would say if someone has stories around those topics, and especially things that are a unique or a clever take on any of those issues, like we would be open to it. But to go back to what we talked about earlier about relationships, we get lots of pitches. The important thing is to know who uh, who a reporter is, what they cover, and to be as direct in your pitch as possible. As you know, people flood our newsroom with email saying, we have this expert on this thing. One, if you know the reporter and what their beat is, and who and what they cover, it is a better your percentage is better if you can be direct to that reporter. If I get something about, actually, I get pitches and I pass them on to department heads if I feel like we need to. But if it looks like they've copied everybody in the newsroom, I don't need to do that. And so, flooding the newsroom isn't as effective as knowing who the reporter is, what they cover, and what you might want to pitch to them. One of my features reporters, she says she gets things that they obviously haven't read her work because that's not the area she covers. So she's, it's delete. Delete the my business editor. He says, Texas is a big state. I get pitches for things happening in El Paso, which is 12 hours away. That is not, that is a waste of your time if you're doing it that way.
Mhm.
So just understanding, which beats reporters cover and who they are. But it's even better if you've had an opportunity to work with them in another capacity. So I would do things like ask them if they have, a couple of minutes so that you can introduce yourself. You don't have anything to pitch. You're just trying to establish, when you see my name, you may have a better shot at having that email get opened up. And, just doing that kind of foundational work, just making sure that you met someone, what they cover, what they might be interested in, so that instead of a blind email that you could just call and say, hey, I've got this thing, thought you might be interested, I saw you did this story on you know people exiting the country after the election, might you be interested in talking to this expert? And the other thing is that we typically will use more local experts than someone on a national scale, just because we're a regional paper. We're not the Times or the Post or Wall Street Journal or USA Today. Most of what we're doing is specific and targeted to readers in Houston and Greater Texas, if it's that kind of story. So just knowing, what we are, who we are, and what we cover, and having you have a relationship with a reporter or an editor, because the editors are making the decisions. Reporters, will say, I want to do this, but it is in concert with their supervisors that we decide actually what gets covered. So sometimes if you have a relationship with both an editor and a reporter, and you understand that specifically what they cover, that is a way more effective way of getting what you're trying to get out, as opposed to flooding a newsroom and that follow-up call, did you get my email? No one likes that. No one picks those up. Like, we just, we don't have time for that.
Yeah. And thank you for answering that. That was one of the questions that came in from someone watching our webinar today. So thank you for that. If you have a question for our panelists, just hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and you can submit that, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. But Lexi, I know you're also passionate
Yes.
about that, so I'll let you go too.
Yeah, I think Maria and I have very different type of coverage, both in terms of like news versus product and also just national versus local. But everything she said, I 100% agree with. I get pitched products for food all the time, and then I get 3 follow-up emails like, "Why aren't you answering me?" And I'll pass it along to a food editor. I'll pass it. We have, different editors. We have a nutrition director. We have a kitchen appliances editor. There are people I can pass it along to. But then likewise, I'll get a pitch for pillows, which I do cover. And then every person I work with will get that same pitch for pillows. And then those 20 people will email it to me. And then I'm now flooded with the same pitch. And I'm like, I don't even want to look at this anymore.
Right.
So I think that making sure you have the right editor. In our case, the editors are the ones who are writing it. We don't have the reporter versus editor difference.
Mhm.
Making sure it's the right publication. So there are things just that aren't on brand for us. The right coverage type of pitch. So gift guides is huge in my world. So I get pitched mattresses for gift guides that are $1,300. I get pitched medical supplies. I get pitched, I was getting pitched luggage like crazy in the height of COVID, when no one was traveling. My heart breaks for these companies that are losing business, but we would look absolutely ridiculous writing a best luggage roundup and promoting that, when no one was traveling due to travel restrictions. So, just making sure that the way you're pitching something, is to the right person, the right outlet. But, the big thing is just the right approach for it. So I will never cover medical supplies in a gift guide roundup. I think people think gift guide season means like a free for all, and it just, it sounds ridiculous. Like even if you can spin it a certain way when you write the email, it might not be the best thing to do.
Hmm. Say, Lexi, also, and when you're talking about the approach to your pitch, will you talk a little bit about the tone you're taking with?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think some of the big things are focus on your product and what's great about it. There's a lot of putting down other brands, which I personally can't stand. Like, you should not be, in certain cases, there is newsworthy content around, a product that had a recall or something along those lines. But I cover all types. Like I cover tissues and toilet paper and so on, and I even cover like incontinence products. So people are like putting down other products in ways that, if it's not glamorous, but it's really like focus on your beat. And then the other thing, and I know we had chatted about this briefly before, was just don't insult the person who's writing the article. I know it's not the intent, but I get a lot of pitches that are like, they're basically telling me my article is not complete without their product, and you really missed out on this opportunity because you didn't feature us, and would you be willing to just add us in? And it comes from a place of, the intention is to show how great their product is and how, it's really going to make a well-rounded article. But when it comes of a way of like attacking it, like you missed out because you didn't include this, and oh, you probably didn't find us in your search and that's why you didn't include us. For me specifically, I test all of my product. I'm a fiber science by background. I went to school and work in a lab. They're exactly what I'm doing right now. So if I'm testing a product, it's not just because I see, I like the way it looks or it has good reviews online. It's really because we've put a lot of effort and thought and testing and months of preparation into picking out the best products. So then when someone comes to me and says, your article is not great because you didn't have my product, it's really not the right way to approach it for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
So Maria, you spoke a little bit about how your reporters aren't attending as many events, like press conference type events. If you're, what advice would you give communicators who are looking to get some news out about assets that they can share along with their press release, like photos, videos? Are you looking for more of that these days? And if so, what should we keep in mind when we're sending that to you?
Yeah, actually, I that same features reporter was describing she was writing a story and needed and was talking to the author and needed a JPEG of the book jacket, just photo. And she said it took way too long for them to, but like that should be at your fingertips. It's we need it, we're a daily product. And making sure that you have those things lined up so that if we need a photo, hand out photos. Because actually at the height of the pandemic, we weren't sending photographers out and into indoor spaces and that kind of thing. Just out of safety for them. So if we need handouts, have it in high res and at your fingertips so that, it doesn't take 30 minutes of back and forth to get those things. So, I mean, it's about efficiency, if help us, with our storytelling, if you have photos or videos even, and sometimes we would use those on our website, but that doesn't happen too often. We do our own videos typically, but just knowing that because everyone is limited in their ability to get out and about, if you have something that will help us tell the story, making that available as efficiently as possible. Like I said earlier, reporters are starting to go out a little more, but we're not encouraging people to take unnecessary risks. So whatever we can get, through email and that sort of thing is what we'd like to have.
Great. And Lexi, what advice would you give in terms of visuals to share?
Well, I think in the same lines of having a pitch with a quick image, because I do more product. I mentioned this before, but I just want to be able to know what it is and why it's important. So sometimes having imagery, not even as an attachment, but just in the body of the email. So when I'm scrolling through, it's something that can stand out for me. We are similarly, like, we were doing very few photo shoots before. We do have an on staff photographer who at his home was able to do a lot of shoots and no one would know the difference. They looked amazing, but they're now starting to do a few shoots back at the office. It's very challenging, even just not being there, because normally I would have product sent to me when we had a photo shoot coming up, and then the day of I would carry it down to our studio. So just the work around that has been more difficult. So we do request imagery from company art that our photo editors can put against a different color background or whatever, just to make it work on the page. Most of my digital work, we end up using just the website images for consistency, especially if it's like a listicle with all the different product roundups. But when it comes to print, we're definitely getting creative around the photo shoots we're having.
Great.
The one thing I do want to point out is, like, for our print product, we are a daily newspaper. So that front page has to have art on it that is live. And so we've been getting very creative about, you know, can we shoot this with a long lens? Or, is this a safe spot to send a reporter into? And then there's always the wire option too. But because, like I said, the Chronicle is a regional newspaper, a local newspaper, that front page needs to reflect more of our community. And so we get photographers out, but in as safe a way as possible.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So, Maria, when I worked in a newsroom, election night was a very busy night, and it would be all hands on deck until very late in the night or early in the morning.
Mhm.
And you said you're in the middle of that planning for your newsroom right now. How long are you planning for people to be on deck for this election?
We have scheduled overnight. We, the bulk of the people will be here. Our deadline is, midnight, 12:30, for the print product, but we can update the website, anytime. So we'll have reporters here. They'll take shifts. There'll be midnight, and there will be somebody overnight, and then someone else will come in, 5 a.m. Just so that we can be ready for whatever happens. Not clear that we'll have, your traditional, 11 p.m. calling of races. I'm not sure that'll happen, but we have seen a huge early voting turnout. So those get counted first. So we'll have some results, but I do think that this one will be unpredictable, and that we will have to, be really nimble about our reporting. But we do plan to staff overnight because the web is always there. In the print product, by the time you see it in the morning, some of those will be already out of date. So we're driving lots of our readers to our website to for the most up to date. results.
And if I'm a communicator who has a non-election, non-COVID story to tell,
Good luck
what
with
advice?
that.
Yeah, what advice would you give me? Wait a week or two after the election?
Um, I would say, well, depends on what it is and the timing of it. We are seeing a little bit. I don't know that we'll get to fatigue until like Wednesday or so, but we've filled our website and pages with lots of election stuff. So if there is some really great human interest story or some story that helps people kind of transition away from elections back into some semblance of normalcy, we would look at that. But again, whether you're in the Twin Cities or Houston or whatever city you're in, make sure it's relevant to that city. And speaking just on daily newspaper website and paper products, like for us, it has to mean something here. And I'm sure you'd get the same answer if you talk to the editors at the Star Tribune and the editors at the Pioneer Press and CCO and all those places. Like, this has to matter here. Um, so just again, making sure that that thing is relevant and unique, and we haven't seen it before. Someone's doing something really awesome. Make sure you say that in the first like couple of lines of your email pitch if you're doing it that way. Or better yet, if you have a relationship with a reporter, this is something they'd be interested, you call them up and
Mhm.
say, I've got something for you. I know you guys going to be kind of sucking wind after Tuesday, so I'm going to help you out. Here you go.
Good, good. And Lexi, if somebody thinks they have something for you, what's your timing? Like, what issue are you working on right now? And what are you planning? How far out are you planning for digital?
So, well, one thing I'll really quickly add on to event things is I don't personally cover the election in my writing, but I will say that, there are a lot of events that are worth keeping in mind. I get a lot of pitches for things like National Cookie Day or whatever national day it is, because there's something every day. And those I could not care less about because no one's looking for like best products to buy on National Cookie Day. But there are a lot of events that happen in the shopping world that people might not think are relevant, but they are. So something like, this is just a very recent example, Amazon Prime Day. Whether or not a product or an article is specific to Amazon Prime, that is a huge shopping day, and there's so much content and intent to buy that's happening on that day. Every other retailer is doing sales too, so that's like a Black Friday for our team. So just something to keep in mind. It doesn't have to be so specific, but it is a major shopping event. It might not be something that people are considering. Even something like the new iPhone announcement. Like how many products can be born out of people deciding whether or not they want to buy the new iPhone? There are all the new cases that they can pitch to our team. So there's just a lot of opportunities that come from events that might not seem like major events to most. So something to keep in mind and not to worry about the silly national days. Um, but yeah, as far as planning, we are now working on our January issue. And by working on, I mean really finishing it up. We've written the pages, we're finalizing the images. I'm working as far out as June on some ideas that we're getting started on. Like we do have a little bit of a map as far as what is going to live what month. So there are some things that might need more testing that we'll work further out on. But as far as like putting together the magazine, we're working on January and February. Um, Pretty much the same for digital. So we actually, it surprises people, but we work far out on digital too. Because I mentioned before, search is a huge way for us to draw our audience in. So we want to make sure that before a peak happens in search, if especially if it's something that's seasonal, that we are going to be ranking in the spot where we want to be before that peak happens, or before that even like it starts to peak up, we want to be there. So over the summer, we're working on Halloween. By the end of the summer, early fall, we're into the holidays. And it's not just holiday specific content, it's everything. Like I said, there are indirect results that happen around it. So for me, bedding is just peaks between Black Friday and the holidays, November, December. People are searching for bedding. Maybe it's to gift, maybe not. I just think it's the time of the year. People are conscious about sales that are happening. It's usually more of a self purchase, but just it's that mindset that this is the time to buy, and that's when people are going to be searching. So there are things that people are buying year round, but just happen to peak at certain different times. Um, yeah, and I think it's yeah, but just working further out. But then again, we will be updating sooner when we get closer, just so that the date is more fresh when it really comes time to run home with that idea.
Yeah. And you also shared a tip with me. If I have a product that's available on my website, but it's also available for sale at Amazon, I should
Mhm.
definitely share the Amazon link as an FYI for you.
Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of people who prefer to have it go directly to the brand's website for obvious reasons. But we do find that people are more likely to follow through with their purchase if it's from a trusted retailer like Amazon, where they know it'll arrive quickly, exactly when they can expect it. They know they can return it easily. Whatever the membership perks are, the familiarity, they are more likely to follow through. And editors are also more likely to link to a product if it's available on a site that they are more comfortable with. Affiliate revenue is definitely something to consider. Um, just the idea that there is a business component to product roundups, and it's not 100% and it's not a hard and fast rule, but it is part of the strategy. So if you have your own website and there's no affiliate revenue, unless it's a truly amazing product, there's not as much incentive for editors of a lot of these, product specific publications to be reviewing it.
Hmm. Great. Lexi, before I let you off the hook, any last words for the communicators who are on this call? Any
Mhm.
last advice that we haven't covered?
I feel like we've covered most of it. Again, I just think the biggest thing is to, be really the intent and be really mindful of the emails that come across. I think the idea, what Maria said before, of just like having an introduction email, not pitching it, but just I want to get my name out there. I'd love to introduce myself. I love those emails, and I never really thought about that as a good tactic before, but it's so true. If someone starts a new role at a company, or maybe I haven't dealt with them and they work with one of my colleagues, just reaching out, like I always somehow end up reading those. So I think that's a great point, and just not flooding, and just being really mindful of who you're speaking to. I get a lot of conversation starters that are in email pitches that's like, hey, what are you up to this weekend? But it's clearly a mass email sent out. And that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like if you're going to try to be, familiar and have a conversation, then it should be very strategic for that one person as opposed to a mass email.
Good. And Maria, any last tips?
Exactly what Lexi said, and what the relationships are important. Don't flood the newsroom. Try to be familiar with, if you're working in one area, say if you're in politics or features, know the reporters and what they cover and what they might be interested in. Try to have that relationship. And just be specific, and please don't call and say, did you get my email? Because A, no one will pick that up, and B, it's not very effective.
Good. Well, thanks to you both for taking time out of your very busy days to be with us today. This was so much good information. And like I said, we'll be posting this to Tunheim's social channels later today. So if anyone who's participating knows someone who might benefit from the information that Maria and Lexi shared, you'll be able to share it. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So
Thanks also to our team from Tunheim's digital practice who made this all happen for us today. That was fantastic. And I wanted to let you know that also that Tunheim's going to be hosting another panel in early November that focuses on content. So you will be able to get more information on that also on Tunheim's social channels very soon. We'll have experts from social channels and from digital channels who will be joining us and giving their best advice for content. I also wanted to remind you, as Nick's been posting in the chat panel, that Tunheim's offering free of charge business hours, where we're offering 20-minute sessions where our team will give you um, time to talk about whatever is, whether it's your 2021 communications plans or a specific challenge you're having. We would just love to spend a little time with you and get to know you and share our insights. So you can click on that link to sign up for one of those sessions if you would like. Thanks for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.
thank you.